Have you ever wanted to write a book, or you feel like there's a message inside of you, but you have no idea on how to get that out into the world, or where to start, or what to do? Well, today I'm excited. I have a special guest for you. So ladies, welcome back to the Mamas in Control podcast. You know who I am, and by now you might know the drill. Another day, another podcast. Today, I'm sharing with you Richelle Fredson. Richelle Fredson is the founder of Purposeful Platforms. She works with aspiring and current authors to grow and solidify their promotional platforms, as well as creating impactful and marketable book concepts and book proposals. Richelle used to be the Director of Publicity and book marketing at Hay House for many years, and she has a really unique lens through which she coaches writers on how to navigate the ins and outs of the publishing world. So I met Richelle, I'm going to tell you the story, through my frustration of knowing that there was a book inside of me that wanted to be birthed into the world. And have you ever looked at someone and things just feel easy for them and you're judging yourself, right? Because it could be, people do this to me all the time, like, oh, podcasting is so easy for you, or video is so easy for you. But realize I do not identify as a writer. I can sit, I can write, I can journal, I can do all of those things. But sometimes our medium as humans isn't always the same for everybody else. And going back in my story as a small child, I always struggled with reading and writing. And so I would overcompensate by speaking. I would speak out loud. I would do oral presentations. I would rock it. I could totally understand that and master that. But when it came to reading and writing, I couldn't figure it out. And yes, maybe some undiagnosed learning disabilities, but back then they didn't have the support that they do now. And it just became my crutch to overcompensate with using my voice. So I grew up feeling that, about 15-ish years ago, I was like, I'm going to write a book. I want to write a book. And it was very surprising to me because I never felt like I actually wanted to write the book. It wouldn't go away, this ache, this knowing. And so I kind of shoved it for many, many years. And then becoming a coach, working with women, having this message, telling my story about cancer and what it taught me, this desire just became stronger and stronger and stronger. And so I had to start listening to it because it was just annoying. It was always in my face and it wouldn't leave me. And a few years ago, I started taking it very seriously and I started looking for the right person to support me. And I hired countless people. I looked to many different people, whether it was voluntary or I knew someone. And, I actively was like, okay, I'll buy this book. I'll read about this. Oh, I'll lean into this person. And I just never felt I found the right person. And for my own personal journey through the book world is I knew I didn't want to self-publish. Now, there's a whole debate between self-publishing and traditional publishing. And, I've talked to both. I've talked to people who traditionally publish. I've talked to people who have self-published. And it is, it's like choosing which baby name you're going to pick for your child. It's a personal choice. There's pros and cons to both. So for whatever reason, traditional publishing just feels right this first round. Who knows what second round will be? I have no freaking clue. I'm just leaning in. But before you decide which route you're going to take with a publisher or publishing style, you need to have a book concept. And this is where Richelle came in. Because I knew there was this story within me, but I always said, I need a midwife. I need somebody to pull this out of me. And I was introduced to Richelle at the beginning of the year. Actually, it was like September-ish, not even that long ago. And I just immediately felt in alignment with this woman. One, because regardless if you like it or not, if you're writing a book for people to read it, it is a marketing strategy. What does that mean? I used to think business was gross. And have you ever gone to a therapist and you knew nothing about the therapist. You just had a referral, or you're opening the yellow pages. Do you remember the yellow pages? And you go to like family counseling, you call this person and you're like, can I make an appointment with you? You sit there, you are about to like, tell them all of your deep, dark secrets, and you're like, this is not a right fit. It doesn't feel good. And then so you go to another therapist and another therapist and another therapist, and all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck? I'm done with therapy. I'm done with personal development. I'm done with self-help. I feel like there's no one that can help me. That's how I felt with writing a book. I was searching and searching and searching, and I couldn't find somebody to help me. Now, this is where marketing comes in. You guys listen to my podcast because it is called Mom is in Control. It is not called Woman in Control. It is not called Dad is in Control. That's my husband's podcast. It is not called Aunt in Control. It is not called Divorced Mom in Control. It is called Mom is in Control. You are a woman who's most likely a mother who wants to feel in control of your life, right? That's what you want. You found me because of your desire to take back control of your life. If I marketed myself as Heather Chauvin, you might have never found me. The point is, of what I'm trying to get to, is we need to market ourselves. We need to niche ourselves. We need to know, what does the world need? If you have the cure for cancer and you're out there in the world, you literally have the cure for cancer, and you're out there in the world and you call it the cure for warts, because you know it can cure warts, but it can also cure cancer, right? The cure for warts. People who have cancer, physicians, whoever, people are not going to come to you and say, you have a cure for warts, this is going to help cure cancer. If you declare that you can support somebody with something, you do it. And then once people get closer to you, they'll listen to you. So sometimes people will like my F-bombs. Some people won't like my F-bombs. Some people will like my quirkiness where I can't say words correctly, or I say weird shit, or I make up my own words. This is who I am. The more authentically I show up as myself, the more I will attract people who are attracted to me. And to be honest, there are people that just won't be attracted to me, or they'll be triggered by my message, or they're like, that's not my thing. It's like, why do some people like one author and not the other? We're all here to make an impact in the world. But if we're hiding, nobody can find us. And if you're not marketing yourself correctly, meaning your message is not presented correctly, then the world doesn't even know you exist. And so I used to have all this like negative yuckiness about marketing and business and sales. And the truth is, I can save lives. I can help you take back control of your life. I can do that through my story. I can do that through my skills. I can do that through my professional experience as a social worker. But if I don't show up and tell you how I can change your life, you're not going to know that change is possible. So that is why I decided to hire somebody like Richelle, because I was frustrated. One, when you're frustrated, that's a symptom that you need to ask for help. If you can't solve the problem yourself, you're not a failure. I also had to work through these big fears of mine that I was a failure if I couldn't figure this out myself in the book world, because there's a lot of secrets that people keep, and like, oh, look it, I'm a New York Times bestseller. Okay, but do you know what team and marketing and editors and all of that happened for that book to become a New York Times bestseller? I feel like people of brands get way too much credit when really they're just the face. Like, yes, they're the face, but there takes a lot of, and they hustle, and I get all that, they've put in a lot of time, work, dedication, but there's a lot that happens behind the scenes in publishing a book, in delivering a book, marketing a book. Anywho, my rant to say, once I asked for help, the doors flew open for me. And Richelle was that catalyst for me. So I interviewed her. We talk about her work, how she helps people. She mainly works with people one-on-one right now. I think she does have some group coming up. But the best thing is, if you feel called or connected to reach out to this woman, then just go check her out. It's purposefulplatforms.com. She talks about her website as well and the best way to connect with her in the episode. But it's purposefulplatforms.com, or just Google her, Richelle Fredson, first name spelled Richell, and Fredson is Fredson. Realize you're not alone. If you have a dream and you have a desire and there's a book inside of you, and now feels like the right time, right? Timing is a true thing. If now feels like a right time and you're literally beating your face against the wall, this podcast episode might be for you. You don't need to traditionally publish. You can self-publish. But for me, I was asking a whole bunch of people, how did you do that? How did you do this? And what I was asking is other people, how can I be more like you? Rather than asking myself, how can I be more like myself and express that through how I need to express that while writing this book? And Richelle gave that to me. So I'm really excited to have this conversation, for you to listen to this conversation, and just know you're not alone, and your message needs to come out of you and be expressed in the world. I cannot say this enough. So let's dive in. All right, lady, I'm excited for this topic. Welcome to the Mamas in Control podcast. Ms. Richelle, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
So they've already heard your intro of your awesomeness and what you're creating out in the world, but I thought we need to have a behind the scenes conversation about book writing, because it's not as glamorous as everyone thinks it is.
There are people saying it's glamorous. I haven't gotten this memo. It is
that's
labor
the illusion we're buying into. That's the illusion.
Yeah, it's a labor of love. That's how I like to refer to it.
Yes. The number one question I always receive is, when can I read your book? And I'm like, stop asking that. I've now stopped telling people I'm writing a book.
Yeah, it's actually good to kind of stay in that sacred space as long as you can. I have friends and clients who are very close to turning in their manuscript and saying, I'm not telling anyone because I just want to keep this creativity going. And once people start asking questions and you get the pressure and it distracts me from getting the words down on paper. So yes. I get that.
So it's interesting because for so long, it's like this creative bubble, right? Like there's something inside of you, you want to create and cultivate out in the world. Sometimes you know exactly what it is. Sometimes you have no idea. You and I were connected, I don't know, not even 6 months ago or so. And I was like praying. I was doing everything I possibly could to say, I need the right person to guide me through this process. And you pointed me in the right direction. And I'm just very grateful for you.
Absolutely.
So let's first talk about, let's just pull back the curtains on publishing in general, whether it's traditional or self, and just book 101 for the people who are listening that might go, it's in me. There's a book inside of me.
Yeah. I think the most challenging part is figuring out the core mission of the book. That's like the first step that, when we look at people who want to write a book as a creative opportunity or to enhance their coaching business or, to grow a retail business or whatever it is, it's helping to identify the mission of the work is going to make everything else come easier. So it's really aligning with what I want people to learn from this. So if you take yourself out of the equation first and say, how is this of service? Then it's a little bit easier to focus on what needs to get done. So, that's sort of where we set the framework for writing the book proposal, right? It's like people can come to the table and say, I know exactly what I want to write about. This is it. That's what's in my heart. The second you start putting it down into a document is when you go, oh, wait, well, this could actually go a little bit more in this direction or maybe it's becoming more clear through that process. So the book proposal process is actually taking this sort of inventory of what you want to create. And it's like the step one. So I find it to be like a major discovery phase, even for people who think they know what the book is going to be. Going through that process.
Are you winking directly at me?
Directly at you. That it's just a self-discovery going through that process. So, that's, no matter whether you want to self-publish or publish traditionally, I recommend doing the proposal process because it makes everything else become really clear. And then when you sit down to write the book, it flows. It's, the mission, what you want to achieve, your target customer, everything comes into play. And you can really, then write with ease.
So I was just going to ask you that question. Do you need a proposal if you've decided that you're just self-publishing a book? And you kind of just answered that.
Yeah, you don't need to, but I think it's a really great process just for doing the research of what it will take. And I mean, what a publisher is looking for in a proposal is, the core concept, who what your channels are, what your platform is, that word's thrown around a lot and people sometimes get hung up on what that needs to be. That is what the publisher is looking for. But for you, when you're writing it, it's really about becoming clear on what the book will do, what it's in service of.
Well, yeah, because there's this matchup between what you want to put out into the world and what the world needs from you. Mm-hmm. Because you can put that out into the world, but if the world doesn't need that from you, not even so much you're not going to sell any books, but no one's going to read it, right?
Yeah. Well, and here's the third arm. The publisher wants something different too. Mm-hmm. So you're serving all these audiences. I mean, we talk a lot about the proposal as a discovery document. Really, at the end of the day, before you dive into writing the book, a publisher is going to want to weigh in on what they want more or less of. So that's why it's such an important step to start with. But yeah, it's sort of this figuring out how to serve your need as the creative, as the author, as the teacher, and how to serve the ideal customer. So.
It kind of reminds me of like life in general. Who do I want to be versus who does the world want me to be? Mm. And if you do not have that core solid foundation, like, hey, would you like a coffee from Tim Hortons? That's the Canadian version. It's not Starbucks, but
I got some Canadian blood.
It's like Dunkin' Donuts kind of shit. But, or would you like a Starbucks, right? If you're like dead set on Starbucks and everyone's like, come on, I'm just going to Tim Hortons. Like, can't you just get a Tim Hortons? You're like, no, I want a fucking Starbucks. Like, you have to take a stand for your damn Starbucks. Mm-hmm. And I'm learning that in the book space, but it's kind of fun because I've noticed that these skills are something that I've utilized. Like, this whole podcast is called Mama's in Control, and my business is, was primarily around parenting, but I'm noticing that the same skill of like my husband calls it inner stance, but it's like inner knowing or that confidence. You're like, this is what I declare.
Yeah.
The declaration of who I want to be. You can always make that decision. No one's going to make you do something you don't want to do. You just walk away if it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And it's good to come to the table knowing what you want from it, because then someone, whether it's a writer or a coach or a consultant, someone like me, is going to crack you open and make you go even further, because I'm looking at it through the lens of what's marketable, what's going to sell, what's going to make a publisher happy, what's going to help grow your business. And sometimes you're sitting in so much of the passion seat that you're not able to see all the other places that you need to serve. Mm-hmm. So it's just, there's so much self-discovery in going through the book process.
I love how you just keep winking at me like, self-discovery. We haven't brought you all the way through the process yet. So I always like just being real and authentic and honest. That's so much of the book process, and I'm only in the introductory phase, was about me having to do it all as someone who had a book inside of me, and then saying, ooh, this is hard. I don't know how much of this, I need someone to collaborate with me to help me write this. And so getting that support on board, and you're like, Heather, like a lot of people do this. And I'm like,
Most people.
why do we put up these walls of the illusion of the way things need to look?
I mean, I think women especially do that in all areas of our life, right? Like, we've got it together. We can do it. You know, I'm going to champion my own creative mission. But the truth is, you only know what you know. And so you can't be expected to know the ins and outs of the entire process. So I think having someone carry you and support you and hold you through it is the best thing. I mean, it's just, sometimes you just need the help, and you only, it gives you the freedom to be in the creative seat more and let other people say, okay, here's where we could go. You know, here's some other advice. Here's some things to consider. But I think it gives you a little bit more freedom in the end.
What I've also discovered too is I feel like I would be doing a huge disservice to the reader if I did this by myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm coming from like one lens and bringing all my emotional baggage. And yes, I have the passion and the creativity, but you can 10x that. And this goes back to, you know, when you get out of your own way, and I'm really diving into that with, I never thought I would be this, like, I guess I always knew I was a feminist, but like I'm becoming this hardcore, like, women's rights woman person. And I'm like, I didn't realize how oppressed we were, and how, until you really start to dive into your truth and you're like, why the fuck do I need to do everything by myself?
Yeah.
Why do I think other people can't support me? And when you get women in their area of genius together, oh my goodness, you can
miracles
move mountains.
I agree.
So let's talk about, so you said something that I know would trigger people, which is marketing. Marketing a book. It's a business. Yeah. What if you don't have a platform and you want to write a book? What do you say to that person?
Yeah, I mean, the first step is figuring out, where are your people? The people who are going to buy your book, where are they? You know, are they online? Are they going to events? Are they going to retreats? So step one is figuring out how to reach them. But step two for me is always going to be social media and email list. I mean, they're so important in selling physical product of any kind, but more importantly, to just build like a community of people who are going to support everything that you do. So it's just getting the wheels turning. It's creating really great content. It's sitting in the teacher's seat, like really owning your voice as an expert of whatever it is that you've been through, whatever your training is, whatever you have to say, just really owning it and teaching from your true voice to connect with people. I mean, social media was invented to connect. And sometimes we get in the place of seeing it as talking at people instead of it being a conversation. So a lot of the work that I do with people is the content coaching of how do we really connect? What is the type of content that's going to help me build my platform, build a following, so that when I do have something to sell them, they're geared up and ready to go. They're excited. They're going to be the foot soldiers out telling everyone else about it. And that doesn't come in numbers to me. That's not like, I would never sit with someone and say, you need to have 100,000 Facebook followers. Because I've worked with people that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Facebook followers. But if the engagement isn't good, if people aren't really commenting and conversing and reacting, then those numbers don't matter. So I try and bring relief to people by saying, don't focus on that big overarching number. Just get in the habit of connecting and really putting out content and teaching whatever it is that you're going to be writing about.
Yeah, I often find, like, I remember when I first started this community, and it wasn't even so much about the podcast. I just had like my son and his friends come over in my living room, and their parents were dropping them off. I'm like, let's learn about meditation and mindfulness. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And it grew and grew and grew. And then I kept asking myself like bolder questions, like, can you do this in a bigger room? Can you have 50 people in a room? Can you rent out space? Can you bring this online? Can you, have I don't know, an intimate conversation with a woman about her true struggles as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I kept asking myself, kept pushing this boundary and this barrier of what I thought I was capable of. And then on the other side, people say, oh my God, how did you create that? I'm like, I created what I needed. I created the community that I needed, but more importantly, I had to start sharing uncomfortable
That's
shit.
right. That's right. And that is such an important piece that a lot of people forget, is that when we look at building community and trust, even if I talk to you in like marketing to like brand trust, blah, 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 all that means is that people need to connect you as a human. So you can teach whatever you want to teach, but it's really important to talk to them about who you are, sharing a little bit of the personal as much as you're comfortable with, and letting people in a little bit, because that's how we build true community. You know, it's through that sharing and through connecting as humans at the base of it.
Who do you think, is there a specific type of person who can write nonfiction, or can anyone write nonfiction?
I think anyone can write nonfiction with the proper, I don't want to say training, but like if you were going to write a yoga book, right? Perhaps you've gone through some type of training or credential process, something like that. If you're writing from your own experience and you have a really unique story to tell, and you know you can help others, and you've already been in the practice of doing that, you can do it too. So it's about, the first thing I ask people when we start to work together is, are you already teaching in the space that you want to write about? Because that's what a publisher is going to care about. Have you workshopped this material? Are you talking about it on social? Are you teaching events in this space? Are you even just women's groups or small groups? You know, where are you discussing this content? And what has the feedback been? Mm-hmm. Which, just to bring it back full circle to the platform side of things, your platform is your focus group. You know, it's where you get to really try out some of this content and see what people want from you. So, you know, it all plays a role.
I find this so easy now, but when I started, it was not, because of the vulnerability of it. And people get very, perfectionism. I make up my own words. Perfectionism. They get very perfectiony about it, right? Am I doing it correctly? I have a few people in my circles, and then when you start writing saying you're writing a book, you attract more people who want to write books. And I'm like, you could do this. You could totally do this. And then I'm like, Heather, that's not what you used to say about yourself. You just have to share, right? Platform is important. So what do you say to that woman who may have a small platform? She knows there's a book inside of her, and she's getting stuck on, am I doing this right?
Mm-hmm. If you are being consistent, then you're probably doing it right. So that's the part people leave out, is there's no right or wrong way to do social media. You don't need to know Facebook analytics and Instagram analytics to do social media well, to build a platform. What you have to do is connect regularly. So we're all inundated with a ton of information all day long. If you are not repeatedly, in the conversation, then it's really easy to just fall off into the ether. So if you're doing it, just do it consistently. There, of course, is a strategy behind the types of content that we post, right? Like the best way to connect is video, no matter the social platform. So as long as you're doing it and put yourself on a schedule of doing it consistently, then just keep doing it. Platforms don't happen overnight, right? It's a long nurturing game, but there's huge payoff, not only for the book process, but for your business. So, I was talking to someone this morning whose ultimate goal is to be speaking publicly more. And her platform's okay. She's not diligent about it, but it's there. And I said, when I look for someone to come speak in an event, or even when I was looking for somebody to hire for a certain area of my business, the first thing I do is go and social stalk them, right? You're looking and you're investigating what's this person about, right? It's like your resume 101. Oftentimes before someone even goes to your website, they're putting your name in Facebook or Instagram. So it's your very first representation, in the same way that your book proposal is a very first representation of your work to a publisher. So it's so important to tend to it, because it's a reflection of you and who you are and where you want to go.
And the energy that you put out into the world, right? Like, it doesn't mean you have to lie about who you are, but are you generally a very positive person, or are you always engaging in debates and politics and what are you? And that's a side thing, but if you want someone to help you feel really, really good in your body and in your life and whatever you're hiring them for, and all of a sudden you're just like, they're just ranting and bitching every other post. And see what you're doing. Oh crap. I had a thought and it escaped my brain.
So I was going to say something, just feedback off what you had just said about, we used to live in a time where people, you didn't want to discuss any issue that might, alienate one part of your audience or, enrage anybody. And we're in such a time now where people are looking for businesses and experts to take a stance in something. Mm-hmm. And while I think it's important for sure for people to know what you stand for as a human being and as a brand, it can't be the only thing you're talking about, right? Because that serves a certain energy that's kind of amped up, right? So as it's important to have a balance of the things you support, but then also what you're teaching, what you're in service of to your direct audience.
Yeah. Thank you. What do you say to the person who does not have a lot of engagement on their platform? They're just like, I can't get them to engage.
Yeah. Then that would be a look at what the type of content is that they're posting, because maybe it's not resonating. And that could be anything from the length of time a video is, or are you labeling your Facebook Lives with a juicy title that's going to draw people in? Or are you engaging in the comments when someone does leave a comment? Do they know there's a voice on the other end? So it takes some, and I have a trained eye for that. But really, if you just go into your own Facebook page and just say, which are my posts that are performing really well, or on Instagram, and just do more of that. It can be that simple. It's just doing an inventory of what's working and build more of that into your schedule.
And I like that. And also, are you approachable? Like, I'm noticing branding is shifting where it's not perfection, right? Like perfectly professional photos all the time on Instagram versus like amateur, taking dark, dingy photos. I don't know. I get so wrapped up in this because I'm like, I do not want to be on my phone all day, right? Yeah. So there's this balance between creating good content, putting little memes out there, things like that, and then showing up live.
Yeah. And when you show up live, be whoever you are in that moment, right? Like, if it's a day, I live in New York City, so there's chaos all the time. So, if I show up somewhere, or if I'm going to do an Insta story and something, and I'm just like huffing and puffing and, whatever it is, like that's what you're going to get in that moment, because that's what I'm experiencing. I'm not going to wait till like, oh wait, let me put some gloss in my hair and the lighting is right. Like everyone's obsessed with lighting now. I get it. We all want to look our best, but don't let that paralyze you from saying what you have to say in that moment, because if you park it for later, you're not going to do it. So show up, bring yourself how you are fully in that moment, and just do it. And I know from someone that used to assess platforms for a publisher, I love that stuff. I love when someone feels free enough and compelled enough in their message to share it right then in that moment. I actually watched someone like do their grocery shopping the other day because they had to say something at the grocery store, and they're like walking past produce and sharing this like whopper of like a download. I'm like, this is amazing, but she's at the grocery store. That's awesome. Just like, don't wait for the perfect environment, because you'll never do it.
I think that's a really important, it's almost like a life mantra, like don't wait, because you will never do it. My story that I tell myself in my head is, this is fucking stupid. Like, why? Okay, first of all, if I was the woman watching, like seeing someone else, man or woman, doing a fucking Instagram live at the grocery store, I'd be like, you need to leave your phone at home. Like, it does get a little excessive.
It was riveting.
But riveting, yes.
Yeah. Here's
but
why.
At what point are we not declaring every aha moment that we have?
Right. But it was a teaching moment of substance, and that makes a difference. It's not like, is this kale crisp? It was, right? She's a nutritionist, she's trained, and she's saying, she was talking about, what was seasonal, and she had an idea for a recipe and whatnot. Now, I'm a food person. I like to cook. That resonates with me. It worked. I didn't see it as like a holy cow, do we need to be now, if you're in the bathroom or something like this is where we draw the line. But just get in the habit of doing, because then you're going to hone your message. Everything comes from the practice of doing it in platform building.
The practice of doing. That is the key, because if you're not doing and I always relate this to like double Dutch. Like you're on the outside, you're like, when do I jump in? When do I jump in? Like you have to jump in, you have to get whacked in the face with the rope a few times, get your little ankles, like whatever you call that. And then once you get the rhythm, you're like, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden something will fuck up and you just screwed up the damn rope and you got to get back out again and do it all over again.
Yep. You also can't edit. Like, don't go back in your Insta stories and your Facebook lives and go, ooh, what did I do with that? And then go, I'm just going to scrap the whole thing. Like, commit, let it be, in the grand scheme, 15 minutes later, there's going to be another post above it. So you have to just own it.
Yes. Like the 20 F-bombs I've already dropped today in this podcast.
That's what I love about you, though.
Just fucking love it. You bring out the best.
It's authentically you.
Yes. So let's talk about what you have coming up, because I think it's really awesome. And one of the reasons is not just because I think you're awesome. Everyone that I speak to, all the people that you're like, Heather, you need to go talk to this person. You need to go talk to this person. They're like, she will tell you what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear. And I was like, she is my girl. We have one life. If people are just telling us what we want to hear, that is not going to make magic happen.
Right.
So what have you created and what are you going to tell people?
Yeah. So, just to speak to that, it's a unique lens that I look through. My, background in working inside a publisher for the marketing, promotions, acquisitions, looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of book proposals, has focused my eye into what I wanted to see out of those documents. So I've just launched the Book Incubator 90-day roadmap to getting publisher ready group coaching program. And I am amped about it. Like how you feel about your book is how I feel about this program, because this is like my life's work. So through the 90-day program, I'm taking people through the book proposal process. So I'm coaching them on each section. I'm getting into that writing a little bit. I'm telling them what I want to see from the publisher side, what needs to be in there, helping hone the book concept, just getting it ready to go, getting publisher ready, simultaneously doing some platform coaching. So anyone that needs to amplify their platform, knowing that at the end of this, they need to be really attractive to a publisher if that's the type of deal they want. There's a 2-day New York intensive. So you'll hear from literary agents, you'll hear from authors who have done it, PR pros, branding experts. It's just what my dream was to create an all-encompassing program where you learned what you needed to do so that a publisher would go, oh, I like what I see there. They're hitting all the tick boxes. So that part of the work doesn't have to be a concern. It doesn't have to be isolating, because this process can be a little isolating if you don't have support. So that program starts April 17th and application time is now.
I love it. Where can they find it? On your website, obviously.
Yep. It's purposefulplatforms.com, right under the group program tab. It's the Book Incubator program.
And there's an application?
There is an application, just so that I can get a feel for where you are in your book process, if you've worked with anyone previously, where your platform sits now, so that I could put together the most, unique group of voices that will help guide each other, because that's the fun of group work too, is that you get the input of everyone else in the room. So with that said, I'm taking a limited number of seats because it is labor intensive, and I just want it to really be fun and full of ease for all the participants. So, yeah.
And obviously, if there's a book topic or something, you're like, this is not in alignment, you're going to point the person in the right direction, which I think is essential, because too often we're seeking support and then there's not this mutual like win-win where you're like, ooh, this doesn't actually feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes to, we do a discovery call after you submit the application, and I can get a feel for, where you are and maybe some other resources that you might need in the meantime. There's a little bit of homework, to get the wheels turning. So, and like you said, I'd love to be a connector. So if there's somebody else that you need, or you're in a spot that maybe a different service aligns, like I'm always going to point people in the right direction. But this is going to be a fun program.
I went to go unmute myself, and then I hit the wrong button. You're like, okay, dead silence. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Dang, I love this. So where do you, just on average, the person, if a woman is listening to this and she's like, there's a book inside of me, but I haven't even started a book proposal process. That's extremely overwhelming to me. I don't know what the heck is a book proposal? At what position would you like them to be at?
Yeah, you don't have to have started a book proposal. Actually, sometimes when you're too far down the road, it's a little bit harder to backtrack. So, which we can do. But I'd rather get to people when they're pretty firm on the idea of what they want to write about. They've done some of the legwork on what already exists that's out there, right? And how their book is going to be different. And then we can start from square one with the proposal. So I'm not too concerned about people having already started that process. I just want people to feel in a place where they have that conviction and they know that they're ready, that this is an important part of their business. It's an important part of their work. Because we'll talk about how books build your bigger business in the program as well.
I love this.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, we're still talking about books here, but this magical feeling of, I've been thinking about this lately. I've invested a lot of time, money, and energy to, you can call it birth, you can call it whatever, to bring this book out into the world. Mm. And I'm not even close to it's like I just got pregnant or something. And I'm like, guess what? This is why won't this go away?
Okay, first of all, you're way further along than you think you are.
I know. Yeah. But I'm like, why won't this go away? Tell me your professional experience of why we have these ideas that just sit within us for decades. And depending on, the creative and medium and all of that, it's just this nagging little feeling that will not go away. And then all of a sudden you start to spark these flames. And then, it will manipulate itself into what it desires to be. And anything that's creative will keep growing and evolving. And then these fucking other book ideas come in. Yeah. What is this shit?
There's never just one. I'm going to give you two answers to that. One is my spiritual woo-woo version. That is, you're being sparked by your bigger calling, right? You're meant to do this because you're going to help somebody. Mm-hmm. The second reason is that, again, books are a tool to growing your overall business. They're not an endpoint. So going through, even just if we isolate just the book proposal process, fine tuning what you want to do and your messaging for that helps you fine tune your coaching material. It fine tunes your speaking topics. It helps bring everything else into clearer focus, to the point where you're now even better at what you were doing before, which allows you to create subsequent products. Maybe they're books, maybe they're courses, maybe they're new coaching programs. Maybe you can raise your prices because now you're just nailing it. You're in the zone. You've taken what was a little spark of idea and gone, okay, it is super clear now. And now you're on your way. I mean, I've just seen some really miraculous transformations just through going through the book process. I do want to say, though, because I think there's a lot of confusion, that some people think they need to have their whole book written before they get to a publisher. And that's actually not true. So the book proposal is the only piece that you really need to deliver to get a publishing deal, because a publisher is going to want to weigh in on that content and help shape the overall book. So don't interrupt your creative process if you're on that road, but you don't need that whole, you don't need the whole manuscript.
So. Yeah, you might need a few chapters.
A couple chapters, yeah.
Okay, so when people are starting out, they're like, I know there's a book in me. I'm very determined to write a book. this year, next year, in the next 3 to 5 years, whatever. Cause now I'm just like, okay, fine. This will happen in 20 years from now. So just kidding. Look at this is me
I'm not going to let that happen.
Foreboding joy. Get close to it, run away from it. Do you simultaneously say to people, like if let's just say they're new in building a platform, or, they've built one, but they kind of let it go, and they're like, you got to create that momentum, right? So paying attention to the creative of your book, your message, that's time intensive. Let's just be honest. Like you can't run away from it. Like you have to look at it constantly. You also have to look at your platform. So you can't just like hide in a cave and think about your book and then all of a sudden go, oh, the platform. Like you have to do both simultaneously. Can you explain this?
The people that can hide in a cave and go like, I'm going upstate and I'm going to lock myself in a cabin for 2 months and write, are the people that already have a thriving platform. And that's very few people. It takes nurturing on both sides. But again, your social media audience, your platform is your focus group. So as you work through book content, when you're crafting and you're creating that book proposal, you're testing some of that messaging simultaneously on your platform to see how people respond. So to me, it all works perfectly together. But you're right. You can't just start writing and then abandon the platform, because both matter. They work together.
I fell into, like, before you and I entered a relationship together, because it is one of those things. It's like the dating process.
I didn't get a rose. I don't remember you saying.
I know, exactly. I don't do roses. I was going to say, like, what are those cheap flowers? Like
carnation?
Yes. Yeah. Did you get a carnation?
I feel bad for anyone that got carnations today.
I'm just...
They're beautiful.
Oh, God. Fuck, I don't even know what I was going to talk about. Oh, yes, it is a relationship. Like, you're stuck forever. Because this shit just keeps coming through you. You're like, what is this? What is this? This is my perspective. If you deny this force, this calling, you are denying who you were meant to be. And it's just going to keep bugging you and bugging you and bugging you. So a lot of the work I do with women, especially when we get deeper down the rabbit hole, is, oh crap, I've been using motherhood to play small. I've been using motherhood to hide behind so that I could avoid becoming who I really want to become. Who am I to want to do this? And I always say, who are you not to do this? Because yes, it's scary. Yes, there's, you'll have the butterflies and you'll have like, oh my gosh, this is amazing and terrifying and all of that, like all range of human emotion. But why? Not everyone wants to speak your truth. Not everyone wants to deliver that message to the world. And I could hear this before, like, how many people say this? I could hear them say this before, but it wasn't until the closer I stepped to this book. And then when I was like, oh crap, I've committed to this process, right? Oh gosh, open that door. It does something. It's like, I've been waiting for you to show up. Now you're here. I'm not letting you get away from me. Yeah. And I can't go back. I cannot turn around and just play small anymore. Yeah. I'm constantly learning how to swim in the deep end, and that's okay, because when you surround yourself with like-minded people who, one, believe in your message, and two, have the skills that you don't need to have, AKA get out of your own way. You don't need to be superwoman. As long as you can ask for help and implement, that's all you need to do.
Yeah. And you can't, at the end of it, you can't half-ass a book. You just can't. It's too long of a process. Yeah. You have to be ready to 100% like open up your soul to write a book. And even if you're resistant at the beginning, like you will get cracked open through this process. And there's something really beautiful about that. But readers know, right? Your book carries an energy. It really does. And I think readers can feel when there's a guarded voice, or when it's, there's a facade or something there. So it's just really for people who are ready to take the next step. It's a really beautiful time that does not have to be isolated and scary and, where you're expected to know everything. That being said, there are people who aren't quite ready. And me, and you kind of preface this, that I tell people what they need to hear. And there are sometimes people who need to go away and continue the work a little bit more, or even do a little bit more living until they're ready to write it. And I'm also very honest with people about that, but always giving people resources to help them get to the next step.
Because it's just not going to be worth their time, and they're just going to be more frustrated. And I think we need more of that, which is why I really like you and probably why we get along. But when you're surrounding yourself with people like that, the trust is there, and then you can relax a little bit, right? Because it's like, am I doing this? Am I ready? And you're always like, Heather, shut up. Like, you're way further along than you're giving yourself credit for. Because I'm already thinking about like the next one and the next one and the next, like my brain jumps there. And I'm working on being enough. Like, yeah, you're here. It's all good. But it's funny how, I don't know. I just have no idea why. I don't know if it's just Western culture, why we believe we need to do everything by ourselves. But being newly into the book space, it's also, there is a little like, you need to do it alone out there. It needs to be painful. You need to suffer. It's like birthing triplets breached all at once. And you can buy into that. And there was an aha moment I had where I'm like, wait a minute. This is the exact same thing that I'm teaching women not to become in parenting.
Yeah.
So why all of a sudden have I transferred all of this energy, belief system, stories to the book writing process? It's like, no area of my life is going to feel like this, including any part of my business.
The biggest compliment I think I've gotten from clients, and a few people have said this, is I thought this was going to be really hard and really terrible, and you made it really fun. Mm-hmm. And that brings me a lot of joy, because this process is supposed to be fun. But if you don't know the ins and outs, which I don't expect anyone to, then you get caught up in the, am I doing it right? Just like in the platform side. And it's just, you can't be in your creative space and feel like you have to know everything all at once. So yeah, I think, help and support is essential.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime I can chat with you. So again, can you just give the ladies, is this for ladies and gentlemen or just ladies?
Yes, both.
Okay.
Yes, so it's purposefulplatforms.com under the group programs page. It's called the Book Incubator 90-Day Roadmap to Get Publisher Ready.
Awesome. So accepting applications now. And then you will chat and see if it's a good fit.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Richelle.
Talk to you later.